Two legendary warrior cultures. One epic question: samurai versus Viking. Who would win in a battle of blades and bravery? In one corner, the masterful samurai with lightning-fast sword skills. In the other, the fearless Viking with raw strength and a giant axe. Both are legendary, but when these titans clash, anything can happen. Who's your pick? Tell us in the comments who you think would triumph. Welcome back to the Epic and Extraordinary channel, where we will pit history's fiercest warriors against each other for a fun, hypothetical battle. Today, we're highlighting two of the most formidable fighters ever: the samurai of feudal Japan and the Vikings of medieval Scandinavia. These warriors lived worlds apart, one from the shogun's court in Japan, the other from the fjords of northern Europe. But both earned reputations as fierce, fearless fighters. In this showdown, we'll compare their weapons, skills, and battle strategies, and even relive some legendary encounters from history. By the end, you'll have a front-row seat to an imaginary clash of East versus North, the honorable samurai versus the ferocious Viking. Strap in for a wild ride. Before we dive into the fight, let's break the ice with a couple of fun facts and maybe bust a myth or two. Did you know those Viking helmets with big horns you see in cartoons and movies? Totally a myth. In reality, Vikings did not wear horned helmets into battle. You can thank a 19th century opera costume designer for that idea. True story. And how about the samurai? Sure, they were deadly with a katana, but they also had a softer side. Many samurai were cultured scholars and even poets. Imagine a fearsome warrior who could defeat you in combat and write a beautiful haiku about it after. Even women could be samurai. Female warriors like Tomoe Gozen trained in martial arts and fought alongside men. Talk about breaking stereotypes. Now that's some serious girl power. All right, let's gear up for the ultimate breakdown of samurai versus Viking. To truly appreciate this matchup, we have to look at what each warrior brings to the fight. Visualize this. On one side, a samurai in elegant oyoroi armor, lacquered plates laced together, complete with a fearsome helmet and maybe even a menpo mask scowling from beneath. On the other side, a Viking raider in a sturdy chainmail shirt or leather tunic, wielding a round wooden shield with iron rims. The contrast is striking. Weapons and skills. The samurai's soul was said to live in his sword, and for good reason. They were synonymous with the razor-sharp katana. This curved blade could slice through targets with surgical precision. Samurai typically carried two swords, and they were masters of swordsmanship, often trained from childhood. But that's not all. Samurai were also adept with the yumi and the yari. In fact, early samurai were fearsome mounted archers, raining arrows before charging in to duel with swords. Their fighting style emphasized discipline, precision, and honor. A samurai duel might start with a respectful bow and a flash of steel and end in a single decisive strike. They lived by the Bushidō code, a strict honor code valuing courage, loyalty, and fairness in battle. This meant a samurai strove to fight with honor and skill, often one-on-one, and was even willing to sacrifice himself rather than live without honor. Now enter the Viking, a completely different vibe. Vikings were bold, brawny warriors famed for their ferocity and love of battle. A typical Viking might wield a hefty battle axe or a broadsword, plus spears and knives for good measure. Fun fact, swords were actually prized possessions for Vikings. A good steel sword was so expensive only a few could afford one, making it a status symbol. Many Viking fighters carried axes or spears and a large round shield for defense. In combat, Vikings excelled at close-quarters fighting. They'd form a shield wall in large battles, essentially a bulldozing line of overlapping shields, then hack and stab their way forward as a unit. And when that formation broke or during raids, some Vikings fought in a shockingly wild manner. The berserkers. These were legendary Viking warriors who fought in a trance-like fury, howling like wild beasts and not feeling pain. Imagine facing someone who's possibly shirtless, painted, swinging a massive axe with zero fear. Terrifying. The samurai's strength lay in skill and discipline. They trained relentlessly in martial arts and had refined techniques for every situation. Their armor was designed for mobility and deflecting cuts. Lamellar armor could shrug off a glancing sword slash, but it did have gaps, so a well-placed thrust or arrow could be deadly. Samurai rarely used shields. In a duel, a samurai's calm focus and precision strikes could find an opening in an enemy's defense. On the flip side, the Vikings' strength was raw power and fearless aggression. Vikings were often larger and stronger than the average samurai of their time, and they didn't fight by any code. No rules, just victory. If a Viking could win by charging at you when you least expect it or by outnumbering you, he absolutely would. Remember, Bushido might make a samurai hesitate to stab a foe in the back, but a Viking had no such qualms. All's fair in love and war was basically their motto. In fact, Vikings believed that dying bravely in battle would earn them a seat in Valhalla, so they literally had no fear of death, giving them a psychological edge. This fight like you've got nothing to lose mindset made them incredibly formidable on the battlefield. So, what happens when these two go head-to-head? On one hand, the samurai's technique and speed could outmaneuver a heavy-swinging Viking. One well-aimed arrow or a lightning katana strike to a weak spot in armor could take the Viking down before he lands a hit. On the other hand, the Viking's sheer power and toughness could overwhelm the samurai if it turns into a slugfest. A Viking's axe or sword could shatter a parry and break through defenses with brute force, especially since the samurai's sword, while incredibly sharp, wasn't designed to cut through solid metal mail. If that Viking gets in close and lands a heavy blow, the samurai could be in serious trouble. It's brains and precision versus brawn and berserker rage, a classic matchup. The outcome might just depend on who gets the upper hand early and plays to their strengths. History may not have recorded a real samurai versus Viking fight since they lived in different eras and continents, but we have plenty of legendary moments that show what each of these warriors was capable of. Let's look at a couple of jaw-dropping highlights from their stories. Viking legend. The berserker at Stamford Bridge. Picture this. England, 1066. Viking invaders led by King Harald Hardrada clash with the English at Stamford Bridge. As the Viking army retreats across a narrow bridge, one gigantic Viking warrior, often described as a berserker, decides to make a last stand. He single-handedly holds the bridge against the entire English army, swinging his huge Dane axe and cutting down dozens of enemies who dare approach. Eyewitness accounts said he took out up to 40 enemies by himself. The English were so terrified that they had to resort to a trick. One soldier floated under the bridge in a barrel and thrust a spear up through the planks, mortally wounding the Viking from below. Now that's a Viking way to go out. Literally standing on a pile of your enemies. This legendary last stand shows the fearlessness and ferocity of the Viking warrior. They were the kind of fighters who could turn the tide of battle through raw courage alone. Fast forward to Japan, a few centuries later. Miyamoto Musashi is a name every samurai fan knows. He's basically the undefeated champion of samurai duels. Musashi fought over 60 duels without ever losing. His most famous duel was against Sasaki Kojiro on a lonely beach in 1612. Kojiro was a master swordsman known for a swift move called swallow cut, but Musashi outsmarted him. He arrived late on purpose, carved a wooden sword from a boat oar on the way, and then wham! He struck Kojiro with the wooden sword in a lightning move, winning the duel in one blow. The fact that Musashi could win with a wooden weapon against a razor-sharp steel blade is mind-blowing and showcases the precision, timing, and cunning of a samurai at the top of his game. And there are many more tales. Viking sagas speak of warriors who laughed in the face of death, explorers like Leif Erikson who sailed across the Atlantic, and kings like Harald Hardrada who fought in countless wars. Japanese history tells of samurai like Tomoe Gosen, a female samurai who, according to legend, decapitated a rival lord in battle, and the 47 ronin who sacrificed themselves for honor. These stories might be epic or even exaggerated over time, but they highlight what made each warrior culture unique. Vikings impressed the world with their raids, resilience, and berserker bravery, while samurai astonished with their skill, discipline, and unwavering honor. Now that we've seen what both sides are made of, what do you think? If somehow a battle could happen, who are you betting on? The sword-wielding samurai or the axe-swinging Viking? And here's a fun twist. If you were in this battle, which weapon would you choose? Would you grab the elegant katana for its speed and precision, or heft a massive Viking axe to smash through defenses? Let us know in the comments. We're excited to see whether Team Samurai or Team Viking wins the poll of public opinion. And hey, no shame in admiring both. It's a tough choice, we know. The battlefield falls silent. The samurai and the Vikings square off, eyeing each other across an open field at dawn. A gust of wind blows, rustling the samurai's armor cords and the fur on the Viking's cloak. Clang. In a flash, the samurai draws his katana, its blade gleaming in the sun. The Viking raises his shield and lets out a thunderous war cry, charging forward with axe held high. The ground trembles under his heavy footsteps. The samurai remains calm, steady, until the last moment. Then, whoosh, he darts aside with lightning speed, the Viking's axe slicing the air inches from his helmet. They exchange a flurry of blows. The samurai's sword flickers and strikes the Viking's mail with a metallic ring, while the Viking's axe crashes against the samurai's blocking blade with brute force. Sparks fly with each clash of steel on steel. The Viking kicks out with his shield, trying to knock the samurai off balance. The samurai leaps back nimbly, circling for an opening. Both are breathing hard, sweat and determination on their faces. The air is thick with tension as the Viking snarls and the samurai focuses his warrior spirit. One mistake will decide this fight. They charge one final time, letting out battle cries. One final swing, freeze frame. Wow, what an epic showdown that was. In our imaginations, the fight between a samurai and a Viking is incredibly close and could go either way. The truth is, both samurai and Vikings were extraordinary warriors of their times. Each had their own strengths. The samurai's unmatched skill, discipline, and devotion to honor, and the Vikings' raw courage, ferocity, and adventurous spirit. In a direct fight, it's fun to debate who might win, but in the end, we can admire them both for what they were. Legends. The legacy of these warriors is still very much alive today. The samurai have inspired countless films, anime, and video games. From Kurosawa's movies to modern hits like Ghost of Tsushima, we're still fascinated by the samurai's code and swordsmanship. The Vikings, with their voyages and Viking mythology, have exploded in pop culture too. Just think of Marvel's Thor, or the TV series Vikings, and even video games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Both images, the noble armored samurai and the rugged bearded Viking, are instantly recognizable icons around the world. They symbolize qualities we love in hero stories: honor, bravery, strength, and skill. And interestingly, both cultures have a lot of mutual respect in the modern imagination. We often see them portrayed as ultimate warriors. Even though they have never met in history, bringing them together in our minds sparks creativity and excitement. By reflecting on these warriors, we also remember the real history. The samurai served their lords in Japan for centuries, upholding a way of life that valued loyalty above life itself. The Vikings ventured far from home and left their mark from Europe to North America, showing us a spirit of exploration and fearless combat. Both have shaped the world in their own ways. Through warfare, yes, but also through their cultural impact and stories passed down through generations. Centuries later, their legends live on. If you enjoyed this legendary battle, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to our channel for more epic showdowns. We have plenty more where this came from, and we don't want you to miss any future battles or events. Who knows, maybe knights versus ninjas or Spartans versus Mongols could be next. Tell us in the comments which matchup you want to see. And before you go, check out our other video. We've got another epic historical fight waiting for you. Trust us, if you liked this samurai versus Viking clash, you'll love the next one. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay epic and extraordinary.